Welcome to Trustee Talk. I'm your host, Michelle Beckham Corbin, and my guest today is Anderson Township Trustee Peggy Rice. And Peggy will be sharing with us some information on annexation and volunteer opportunities, ways that you all can become involved in the township. Peggy, I am glad to have you here today.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you. It's always a pleasure. This is a very fun show to do.
I love doing shows with Peggy.
Thank you.
So I think we're probably going to start off with annexation, correct? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Actually, there's been some activity in that area. Now, Michelle, some months ago, you may recall that, at least from my perspective, we started talking about annexation on this show and just an overview of what it meant. It's something that likely the residents are not all that caught up in or concerned about, but it is a matter for an elected official to be keenly aware of and to try to protect our interests as best we can. So just a slight background on that subject would be that under the Ohio Revised Code, municipalities or any incorporated area such as a city, a village, or whatever, has the ability under the law to annex land away from a township.
So to take the land away.
Take the land away, and then it becomes part of their community. So that that's not reciprocal, by the way. Townships have no reciprocity in the fact that we cannot do the same thing.
So we can't go and grab land from Newtown, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, I guess it's a grab. Anyway, I guess. At any rate, but something interesting has been happening. Some months ago in the Senate, Senator Seitz introduced an omnibus bill which covered a lot of different topics, wide range. One of them was annexation and the ability for townships to have a vote in what happens to their property. We actually have no vote. We're not considered voting property owners. But that's the way the law is written.
That's
anyway,
crazy.
I know that got carved out, and then it became a House bill, House Bill 50, and House Bill 50 is in the local government committee. Those are the representatives that are looking at the bill, and it's their job to review the bill and pass it out of committee before it goes to the General Assembly House of Representatives. Well, what happened when it went to local government, the bill which would have considered us equal property owners, meaning townships, became convoluted. And there was an amendment which totally changed the meaning and content of that bill. And we became aware of that amendment. We opposed it. The Ohio Township Association opposed it. But anyway, it deals specifically with what we call expedited annexation. So in 2002, the expedited Type 2 annexation procedure came into effect, and it's a special procedure for annexing no more than 500 acres of land in an unincorporated territory of a township. But in other words, to expedite this annexation, it said that 100% of the owners of the real estate in the unincorporated territory of the township to be annexed, must sign. In other words, we had our vote. But the problem was we were never considered part of that 100% because we were a political entity. So that's what needed to be changed. Now, the amendment to House Bill 50 said, well, you could be considered as a property owner if you had a building on that proposed annexation with an employee. Well, you can imagine what the sort of draconian situation that would happen there if we just had all these little outbuildings all around our borders,
little huts with people.
I mean, it just was preposterous. So I became aware that there was to be a hearing in the local government committee on House Bill 50 with the potential of passing it out of committee. Or, yeah, with that potential or another amendment. Well, it was interesting that I heard about it in sort of a roundabout way, and so I became a little suspicious, what are they up to? Because I certainly didn't want that bill in its present state to be passed out of that committee.
To continue.
Right. So I decided that I would go to Columbus and offer testimony to the state representatives. So I'd like to share that testimony with you today.
That would be great.
Yeah, because I do believe that it had a tremendous impact on their thinking. And I decided that they had heard probably more than they wanted to hear about annexation anyway. So my approach was not necessarily to treat it as a logical, look at the logic in this, but I decided to see if I could appeal to them in a more emotional, sensitive way, and see if they would listen. So this is what I had to say.
This is going to be interesting.
House Local Government Committee, House Bill 50 Annexation Petitions, December 6, 2011. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and honorable members of the committee. My name is Peggy Rice, and I serve as Vice President of the Anderson Township Board of Township Trustees, located in Hamilton County, Ohio. I stand here before you this afternoon on behalf of the approximately 45,000 Anderson Township residents whom I represent. My position is to support House Bill 50 as it was originally introduced and to oppose substitute House Bill 50. I am not here to discuss or debate the very contentious issue of annexation. I am here to discuss the issue of ownership of property, the sanctity of which has historical significance within our body of laws. While it is convenient to use labels such as political subdivision and public entity, this permits an emotional detachment and creates an abstraction without consideration for who are the actual owners. The actual owners are the public, the citizens, the residents, the taxpayers. These are the real property owners, not a political subdivision. Your consideration of House Bill 50 in its present form does not recognize these citizens. They are not permitted a voice in expedited annexations of their property, even though it's their tax dollars that paid for the public land, the green space, and the parks. I am here today to ask you to consider the rights of the 3.8 million citizens who live in Ohio's 1,308 townships. A main tenet of our national and state constitutions is the right to own property, the right to acquire and hold a freehold estate in land. A battle cry in our American Revolution was taxation without representation, and it is not a large leap to submit that this disenfranchisement is indeed annexation without representation. A voice in the process is all the people ask. I respectfully implore you to pass not the present bill, but House Bill 50 as it was originally presented to the committee, or to amend it with such and such language. I appreciate the opportunity to testify this afternoon. So that was what they heard.
Wow.
But not only that, but they had it 24 hours as they require, 24 hours ahead of time to review. I guess
to be able to read over.
To read over it and to understand what the person is about. And so consequently, what happened is they took no action to pass that bill.
In the form that you were objecting to.
That I was, they took no action. And I understand that probably what will happen at the very least is they will amend the bill to exclude from annexation potential parks, cemeteries, and green space. So that is a step in the right direction.
That is huge.
That's huge. It really was, and it was interesting to see that committee. They didn't hear it that day, but they certainly saw read my testimony. So I was pleased that it had that desired effect, and we may not even be finished with this quite yet, because I suspect that at some point some bill will come out of that committee, and it will have to pass the full House. And not only that, but then we don't know what the Senate is going to do with this, and they'll have their own version or whatever.
Well, and you know, Peggy, this is where I think you really bring a wealth to Anderson Township. Because of your years of experience, you could take a look at that situation. Number one, find out the information, you said, kind of through a different source, so that you could jump in to make a case. But you knew that the way to appeal to them was truly through an emotional piece, in terms of really talking about what are the rights of citizens. You know, and I love that whole, I forgot the quote, the taxation or annexation without representation. I mean, that's huge. And just coming right out and saying that this bill in its present form does not recognize the citizens of Anderson Township.
Or all the other townships, for that matter.
Yeah.
Millions of people. So, yeah, and I don't know, but it just may have been the first time they had thought about it from that angle. Yeah. And I think it was appealing.
I think that was a brilliant idea, and obviously it made a difference, and hopefully it'll continue to get molded back to the way, you know, that people were hoping it would work out, so that it was more in favor of what's right for townships.
Well, I'll certainly stay on top of it, and probably be traveling to Columbus more than once. But that's fine. That's good. That's very interesting. So I won't talk any more about it, because it is what it is, and some people are more interested in it than others. But I wanted to share that and let people know what was going on.
Yeah, no, that was great, and I think thank you for that, and actually even sharing the piece there I thought was wonderful. So. Your township at work for you. And so now, what can you do for your township? How about we talk about some of the volunteer opportunities that might be available here for folks who want to get involved?
You know what? What can you do for? That just reminded me of that great Kennedy quote: "Ask not what your township can do for you.
Right,
Ask what you can do for your township."
That's right.
So, and there is a lot. And my feeling is that those people who do volunteer get a great deal out of it. They enjoy it. It keeps them connected. You have all this connectivity with other residents and what's going on. So I'll go into a little bit of depth about each committee opportunity. But before the committees, some people are just too daggone busy.
We were just talking about being busy. Yes.
Oh, just so busy. And so therefore, a committee which typically meets, well, there are some committees that just meet quarterly, but the typical committee would be a monthly commitment.
Right, so there's a regular kind of a flow.
Right,
yeah.
Right, and that's fine, but for those folks who don't want that, there are events, annual events, and that's fine, because it does require, some of these require a lot of volunteers. We've talked about the farmers market many times in the past. I know there's that, but there are regular volunteers who go up there and either work with the vendors or they have various roles. Nancy Downs.
I was going to say booth setup, I'm sure, at least.
Right. So, and that's every Saturday morning. And my experience with the market is that I get up there and I'm just sort of lifted up by what's going on there. The vendors are, selling their wonderful things, and there's always music.
Yes.
There's always music, and that's so much fun. So a volunteer at the Saturday market is a one-day thing, and it doesn't even have to be every Saturday. No, we'll work with you. So there's that, but there's the 4th of July parade, and it takes literally dozens of volunteers to coordinate that, to work with all the floats, with all the people who are signing up to be in the parade, and that's a lot of work, and it's rather a compressed amount of time. Mm-hmm. And The theme of the parade for the past couple of years has been hometown pride, and I just love that. And it does make you feel real good about everything.
And and I personally have been on a float, and it's a fabulous parade. I just wanted to interject for a second. For those of you who are just tuning in, this is Trustee Talk, and I'm host Michelle Beckham Corbin, and my guest today is Anderson Township Trustee Vice President Peggy Rice, and at this point we are talking about ways that you can get involved in the township. Thank you.
So there's the parade, and I think we have approximately 10,000 people lining the streets that day. Even if it's a misty rain, we've never had a downpour, thank goodness. But people they just love it. So that's a great opportunity. There's the Make a Difference Day, which we've also touched upon in the past, and that's cleaning up litter and trash and things that people very inconsiderately dump along. But that's a really good thing to get involved in, because when you come into Anderson, and we have what we call gateways, and those gateways are concentrated on it in this cleanup day, and it just you probably don't think about litter if it's not there, but if it is there,
you notice
it. So that's good. And then of course it's our very wonderful jack-o'-lantern walk, which oh gosh, that's just so much fun. For me, it's the kickoff of the holiday season, and it's a free event, and just to watch the faces of the little kids, and they like to come in their costumes, and they get free popcorn and drinks, and this year we had, this past year we had a great big cat. But it's not scary. That's the great thing,
Especially for little kids, that's a good thing.
That it's not scary, and it does give an alternative to those parents who don't want to send them out trick-or-treating. But at any rate, wonderful, wonderful volunteer event. And so any of those would be a good choice. But there are committees as well. The committee on which I serve is the Transportation Advisory Committee. And that is the long-standing committee, been out there for a lot of years. And they were set the task of developing the Anderson Trail System. And so those committee members probably talk more about bridges and sidewalks than you and I do, but on a daily basis. But they, it's a very good way. I mean, they have a great sense of accomplishment, because they can actually, in a very, very concrete way, see their work and what they've done.
Absolutely, and see the people who are benefiting from the
Right.
trails and out there, especially in nice weather.
Right. And then Betterment and Beautification Committee, that's one that's less known, but their concern is the visual appearance of Anderson Township. So they want to be dealing with landscape areas, community gateways that I mentioned, primary thoroughfare enhancements. I think they were the committee that came up with the trash receptacles and the benches, so that you could walk along and then just sit down and rest. And the contact person for that would be Paul Drury in the township. So, yeah.
Now, would that committee, Peggy, be responsible for those beautiful little signs that kind of change every season along the roads? I think they're kind of attached to maybe some of the lampposts.
Yes, those are our banners, and they're seasonal. Actually, they're seasonal, except that we use the the flag for the summer one. But yeah, they're involved in all of that sort of thing, and if there's some landscaped areas in the township, they want to see that those are maintained and taken care of. So they perform a wonderful function. A spin-off of that, somewhat of a spin-off, was the Street Tree Committee, and they haven't been doing their work quite as long, but we began to learn that part of beauty of a community is its trees. And trees, when we've talked about green space and other meetings and other programs, we know that that if we have healthy, safe, and effective trees, meaning they're planted in the right spaces, It complements our green space, and it enhances our environment by promoting clean water and air, and actually I think it enhances our property values, which is something
Everybody wants.
Right, and we're aware of all the time. So they serve a function, and it's very specific. But if you love trees and you love nature, that's the slot for you.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
A little more serious is the Economic Development Committee, and it was recently formed to identify our businesses, to promote retention of business. We don't want anyone leaving, so we want to keep the businesses that we have, form a close relationship with them, and then their other charge is to bring in new business if they can.
Can I ask you a question? Do you all help to nurture some of these new businesses as well in terms of making sure that we can retain them, or would that be more of the chamber's responsibility?
The new businesses?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the chamber is very working very diligently with this Economic Development Committee, and the chamber's outreach is to promote having a business become a chamber member, which is an umbrella organization to allow businesses to interact with one another and to see the benefits of the community. So the chamber's business is a little different, but this committee would be, let's say a piece of property came on the market for sale. This committee would want to look at that property and say this would be a perfect place for
I see. So,
whatever.
For example, the bowling alley on
Yeah.
Beachmont that is no longer. So, looking
Right.
at what possibly could go in there.
Right, and so the committee worked with that developer, and I think that's going to be a first-class development. And the other thing nice about that development is, some businesses, I guess people just want to pull in and park their car. Well, that's fine, except if everybody does that, we just see a sea of cars as we drive down.
Yeah.
So we convinced them, the developer, when he did his plans, to move the business to the front so that people could see the business and park in the back. It sounds logical, but you'd be surprised how many people wouldn't think of that.
But yeah, if being with a marketing background, I would see that you would want your business, the brand, to really be front and center with all of the cars going by and seeing the signage.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. So that's economic development, and I think that would appeal. I would think that would appeal to a lot of people. One thing I haven't talked about very much in the past, but we are recognized. Our park district is recognized as one of the finest districts in the whole region, park districts, and so they're always looking, for volunteers for their parks. And I don't know, but I know people are aware that we have great parks and they use our parks extensively. But you might just take that a step further and say, wonder how they could use me best.
Oh yeah, I bet there'd be lots of opportunities from even maybe the summer camps and helping out with some of the kid programming.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great? Mm-hmm. And the person there is not a township person, but a park district employee, and his name is Ken Kushner, and his phone number, if you wish to contact him, is 474-0003. And lastly, I'll mention, although they're more technical, I'll mention our two statutory volunteer opportunities, and those are our Board of Zoning Appeals and our Zoning Board.
And just for the list of the viewers, what do you mean by statutory?
Statutory means that we are required by the Ohio Revised Code, which is the body of laws which governs townships, to provide these committees in the community.
So they must have it.
Once we adopted our own zoning, we had by law to have a zoning board and to have an appeals board, which is the Board of Zoning Appeals. The zoning board looks at any zoning change or any new zoning in the community, and the BZA are expected to, when someone needs a variance in their zoning, to look at that variance or the conditions of that variance and to grant it or not, depending. If a fence needs to be erected and they're on a property where the fence, isn't allowed, or if they want a 15-foot fence for whatever reason to keep deer out, I have no idea, and they only are permitted 6, they would make their case to the zoning board and they would make a decision on that.
I see. Thank you for explaining that.
Sure.
Well, those are quite a lot of opportunities that folks can get involved with, from, as you mentioned, a single event where you're just focused on maybe one day of the year, although I'm sure there's a lot of planning ahead of that one event, to the committees where you might meet once a month or once a quarter. So, and lots and lots of opportunities for you viewers, and I think Peggy gave you a couple of phone numbers.
Right.
And
yeah, and typically a volunteer is appointed to a board by the Board of Township Trustees, but we make we're happy to get volunteer people stepping forward at any time of the year, but typically we do it twice a year, in December and in June. So, if you want to put your name in the hat at any time, it's fine with us.
See, that's good. Always nice to be able to know that you can stop in at any time. And then officially in June, that will be coming up in a couple of months. So thank you, Peggy, for being my guest today. I always love hearing from your wealth of experience and knowledge, and I look forward to when we get to be together again. And I wanted to thank you, viewers, for tuning in. I am Michelle Beckham Corbin, host of Trustee Talk, and I will see you next time. Thank you for viewing.
Mm-hmm.